Welcome back everyone. The Google Pixel 5a has been out for a couple of weeks now, and I wanted to go ahead and do a full review again. I've done so many comparisons on this phone. I've done so many comparisons and reviews of the previous Pixels. I've owned every single one, I think, except for the 4a 5G. I forgot about that one. But the Pixel 5a, in my opinion, is a solid device. Google sent it out to me, and it does not change my opinion at all. If it was a bad phone, I would say it's bad. They sent me the Pixel 4s as well, which is pretty funny because I bashed those phones like crazy. But with the 5a, I think they actually did a pretty decent job overall. Now, it's not perfect. It really is one of those devices that if you have to buy a brand new phone for $450, this is a pretty solid option overall. But like I mentioned, Android phones specifically depreciate so fast that you can go and pick up like a Pixel 5 for probably cheaper in the used market than a Pixel 5a. Well, the OnePlus 9s went half price recently. You can pick up OnePlus 8s probably for around the same price too in the used market as a brand new Pixel 5a. So although the Pixel 5a is a great budget tier brand new priced phone, there's still a lot of other Androids in the used market that rival this one and that are much better than this phone too for around, if not cheaper than this price tag. So keep that in mind. I will leave the Pixel 5a link down in the description below, where you can get it from there and help support the channel at the same time. Now, starting off with the body, I actually do like the way this phone feels and it looks. I think it's a pretty big improvement from the 4a in terms of the body and everything. I've heard some complaints that it's like the 4a 5G but just like reincarnated a little bit, not that big of an update. But I think this phone looks good and I think it feels good overall. Now in the front, it does have that 6.34-inch OLED display, and I think visually it looks pretty good. You know, I like that hole punch display. I like really everything about it. There's not a lot of bezel on it, but I will tell you, compared to something like even like a Galaxy S20 or an S10, this display is now better than that display. And on top of that, even with the Pixel 5, the Pixel 5's display is better than this because of that 90 Hz refresh rate. But again, this is a budget phone, so it's not fair to compare that phone to this one. But when I compare this phone to like an iPhone 10 display, the iPhone 10 display looks better. So again, I understand a $1,000 phone versus $450, but that one was from 2017 and this is of this day and age. So I like this display. I just hope next year they really drop like the 120 Hz or at least a 90 Hz on it. That'd be really cool. Now you have a USB Type-C on this thing, but you also have a headphone jack, which is pretty crazy. I was not expecting this phone to still maintain a headphone jack, and it's weird that manufacturers like on a budget phone will keep a headphone jack. That doesn't make any sense to me. Now you have this metal frame overall, and you also have IP certification as well, which is really awesome. Now in my opinion, the phone has this weird texture, and I said the same thing I think about the 5a as well. Apparently it's built out of aluminum. I feel like it feels like in the mix, like in the middle of aluminum and plastic. It doesn't feel as plastic as S21, but it doesn't feel as premium as something like, iPhone 12 Pro or iPhone 12 or whatever the case is. I understand it has glass on the back, but this one sits in a weird spot. I don't know what it is, but it just kind of feels a little bit different. But you do have that dual camera setup on the back that we do have to hit on right now. So it has that 12.2 megapixel wide angle lens, then it also has a 16 megapixel ultra wide sensor. Now I like this camera on this phone. I actually do think it's pretty good. You can do 4K at 60, which again is a pretty big update from the 4K at 30 that we had on the Pixel 4a. And overall, I am a fan of this camera. Visually the photos look good. Post-processing, Google does a really good job with their images and all of that. But like I mentioned, again, I just hope the camera, and I think Google did a good job at not just hitting on the camera for 45 minutes and just moving on. I think they had a press release or something. But when I got this phone, they didn't really advertise the camera too much within the box. They didn't really talk about it, at least far as I know from what they told me. So I think that's a pretty cool thing. There were a lot of other improvements with this phone, and when a phone comes out, like with a lot of iPhones, with a lot of OnePluses, with a lot of Samsungs, these manufacturers just spend 50 minutes talking about the camera. It's very annoying. I like this camera. I think it looks great. The front camera, I'm not a huge fan of. 8 megapixel sensor, 1080p at 30. Again, I would have loved to seen 4K at 60 on the front. Even 4K at 30 would have been great. Even with the Pixel 5a, we only had 1080p at 60, which is a really big downside, with a phone that was kind of built around its camera. For it to not have the best front-facing camera is very strange. People, I think, use the front camera more than they use the back camera. So that's a big thing to keep in mind. I am one of those people. I use the front camera way more than I use the back camera. I would have loved to seen better improvements there, but it is what it is, and I'm not complaining about it. For a $450 phone, I think this is actually a pretty decent camera setup overall, and I think it's a pro for sure. Now moving on to the software, this phone, stock Android, it's beautiful. It's going to get support for a long time, and more importantly than that, it's going to get day one updates. So once Android 12 comes out, once Android 13 comes out, and once Android 14 comes out, this thing is going to be supported with it, and it's going to get those updates the day they come out. It's not going to get the update like a week later or a month later or 6 months later like with some Samsungs. This phone is going to get it in a beta form before it even officially comes out, which is really impressive. Also, the custom ROM community behind these phones is also really awesome. So you can go, like I mentioned, pick up this phone and you'll pretty much be set forever for the software standpoint. So I think that is another really big advantage for this type of phone. You don't want to go pick up a phone and automatically have it, outdated and all this stuff. And with this phone, that is not going to be the case at all. So I think in terms of that, you're pretty much set without a doubt. Now, I do want to hit on the battery life. This device's battery is top tier still. It's a very good battery life, over 4,600 milliamp hours. Coming from the 4A, that was a big improvement. And I can tell you right now, this is one of its biggest features for sure. If you're trying to get a phone that's going to have the best battery life, this is probably going to be one of them. It's not completely underpowered, but it doesn't have a huge display. That's like 1440p. It's a 1080p display, but it is a big display. But no 120 hertz, no 90 hertz. Like, you're going to be getting really good battery life from this thing, and it's stock Android as well. So in terms of that, pretty good assets there. Now, ending it off with the performance, this device does have that Qualcomm Snapdragon 765G chipset with 6 gigs of RAM. Now, I will tell you, I think this phone's performance isn't bad. I think it's actually a really good performing phone. I've compared it to a ton of other devices, the iPhones, the Samsungs of this year, and all these other phones. And I pretty much found that this phone does a really good job with the performance and the chipsets that it has. Now, it's definitely not perfect. One of my bigger downsides of this phone, and I don't know what it is and I didn't do anything with it. I restarted it several times. It seems like this specific phone is very jittery. It seems like it glitches up a lot, and I don't know why that happens. It just sometimes, it seems so much more glitchier than my Pixel 5, which is very strange because they have the same chipset. So I can really only allude that to one specific thing, and that's pretty much that the Pixel 5a does not have that 90 hertz panel, thus making it a little bit of a more jittery phone. And I think that's really pretty much it. When I owned like the Pixel 4s and the 4 XLs and stuff, they definitely felt like a more, seamless experience. Even with my Pixel like 3 and 3 XL, those felt smoother than the Pixel 5a. So I think that's kind of a downside. I've noticed this too when I was doing speed comparisons. There were times where the Pixel 5a would be faster to load up an app, but it would be way more jitterier and it would just like glitch up like crazy and all that stuff. So if you're not a fan of, having kind of like a glitched up performing phone, this is probably not the phone for you. So if you're comfortable with having a phone that is jittery a little bit, like it's not crazy, but sometimes you'll see it, this is going to be one of those phones to keep in mind. But I think other than that, this phone is a very good performing device, and other than that, I have very few complaints about the performance. So to kind of sum up this video and to answer the question, should you go and buy a Google Pixel 5a? Well, this is what I'll tell you. I think this phone is completely worth it. I think for $450, it's very, very good. There's just not that much to complain about. This phone feels really good in the hand. It doesn't feel like a very, very cheap phone. You have a pretty good performing chipset inside of it, very similar, exactly the same as the Pixel 5. You're getting a good amount of RAM as well, which is pretty impressive. You're getting a pretty good back camera, although the front camera isn't amazing. The back camera is actually pretty good. You're getting a massive, massive battery. The battery on this thing is crazy big and is easily one of the biggest advantages for picking up a phone like this. You can easily go ahead and pick up this phone. I have not charged this phone one day that I bought it, and it still is turning on and functional. It's been like weeks since I bought it already, and it's been weeks since I got it, which is pretty crazy. On top of that, you're getting software support for a long time, stock Android, custom ROMs for a very long time too. Overall, very solid phone, and I would highly recommend you guys to pick it up without a doubt. So that's pretty much it. That's how I feel. Definitely not amazingly perfect, but it does a really good job in my opinion. If you guys have any other questions or anything, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.